For affordable food and homes for a change? Who's voting for safe streets for a change? And who's voting to bring home Canada's promise for a change? Wow, quel excellent regroupement de nos citoyens ici dans la capitale nationale. On est ici pour un mot, c'est le changement. Un changement pour une vie abordable, une vie sécuritaire et un Canada qui est plus fort. Allons voter pour le changement demain. Wow, what an incredible crowd. It's great to be back here near our home in Greeley. There's so many familiar faces. Anybody here from Greeley? You know, this is the night before the election. How many of you voted already? And how many are going to drag out friends and neighbors to go and vote for change tomorrow? It reminds me of one election. It was very, very close. And it was the night before. And actually, no, it was the night of, sorry. And it was around 15 minutes before the polls were closed. And we were out knocking on the doors of our supporters, begging them to get out and cast their ballots. We got to the house of this very elderly woman. And I said, can we count on you to get out and vote? You've got 15 minutes left. She said, no. I said, why not? She said, we're too old. We can't get out anymore. I said, we'll drive you. She said, well, we can't even make it to the car. I said, well, we'll carry you. She said, I'm very sorry, but I'm gonna call it a night. She closed the door. So I walked out into the street and I said, you know, there's about 10 minutes left. There's no other person I'm going to be able to convince to get out to vote. I'm going to go give it another shot. So I went back to her door and I pleaded. And she said, oh, all right. And so we went in, we helped her husband down the stairs. We got to the door and we were about to walk out. She said, do I need anything? I said, well, you need some ID. She said, well, my husband hasn't been driving for 10 years. He's got no ID. So she had to go and scrounge up a bill. And so we brought them out. We got them to the car. There wasn't room enough for the two of us volunteers, to jump in with the driver. So we stayed behind where they tore off to the polling station to try and make it just before the polls closed. Sure enough, it started to rain. And where we were in the pouring rain, a few moments later, they came back. And I went to our volunteer driver and said, "Did you make it in time?" He said, "We made it 1 minute before." And they closed early. So I banged on the door and they opened it up and I said, "You have to let them vote." So they went in and voted and they came back out and exercised their democratic right. And so we were helping them back into the house, and just as they were about to go in the door, I took the lady by the hand and I said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you for what you did. I know it wasn't easy." And she said, "And who are you again?" So I have no idea if she voted for me, but she voted for someone. The point of the story is get out and vote. Vote for change. Vote for a brighter future. Vote for your kids. Allons voter pour le changement. There is so much at stake in this election, my friends. This is the future of our country we're voting on. There are so many people across the country that have vested their hope in this campaign. People who feel like they're just hanging on by a thread. Families who believe they're on a treadmill that goes faster and faster. They run further and further, but they never actually move forward, and often they feel they're falling further and further behind. Young Canadians who believe they'll never be able to afford a home. In Riverside South, there was a young man who called me and told me the story that his mother had the exact same job at the exact same office that he has. The difference is that she was able to buy a house in Ottawa when she was 28 years old. And now this gentleman is coming on to his 30s and he has no hope, so he's still living with his mom. He couldn't even imagine buying the same home that she was able to buy doing the same job. And we have countless people who feel no longer safe in their streets. They go to bed worried their car might not be there when they wake up in the morning. They worry about their kids. They've cut back on their diets. They're living paycheck to paycheck. The small business people that have no idea how they're going to make payroll in a few weeks because their tax bill, their gas bill, their heat bill keeps on rising. And the windows got smashed the other day. These are the stories that people tell us every day. But you know something? I have hope, because we can turn this around. We have in our grasp, at our fingertips, the ability to choose change and chart a new and better course for our country. And that is the choice. After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime, we can't afford a fourth Liberal term. We need a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash our resources, and bring home the Canadian promise. C'est ça le choix. C'est ça le choix demain. On a un choix. Est-ce qu'on va payer le prix pour un quatrième mandat des libéraux après une décennie perdue, de coûts hors de contrôle? Ou est-ce qu'on va prendre la décision pour faire changement avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va couper la bureaucratie, les taxes et les impôts, libérer la construction de logements et nos ressources pour que nous puissions être un pays sécuritaire et abordable? C'est ça le changement qu'on va choisir demain. But I know all of our candidates have been introduced already today, and I have some terrible news for them. Their summer vacation is canceled. We're going to be tomorrow. We're going to be kicking off 100 days of change, and it involves passing 3 sweeping change bills. It's going to be the Affordability for a Change Act, the Bring Home Our Jobs for a Change Act, the Safe Streets for a Change Act, and we will keep Parliament open all summer long until every single one of these bills is passed for a change. Change cannot wait. So the politicians are going to have to sell off their golf clubs on eBay. or rent out their cottages because they're going to be busy on Parliament Hill working away to get the job done. The Affordability Act for a change. We will cut $55 billion of waste by cutting consultants, streamlining bureaucracy, reducing foreign aid, and capping government spending so that we can afford our government again. Canada first. How do we like them apples? Nice. Show everybody. There you go. Great kid. Maybe I think she could be a future cabinet minister right here, eh? She's our Minister of Communication. How do you like them apples? We're going to reward work again. The hardworking people here in these communities deserve to keep more of their paycheck for a change, so Conservatives will cut income tax by 15%. We'll get rid of the electric vehicle mandate to save you money on your car and put you back in the driver's seat for a change. We're going to get rid of the capital gains tax when you reinvest your money here in Canada for a change. And then there's the carbon tax. It's still the law of the land. They hid the tax from the pumps for a few weeks right before the election, thinking that they would trick Canadians into re-electing them for a fourth term, at which point they can put the tax back on higher than ever when they no longer need your vote but still need your money. They want to raise that tax on steel, driving our industry south of the border. My friends, I am the only leader who has consistently opposed this carbon tax. And as Prime Minister, within the first 100 days, I will pass a law to axe the tax for everything, for real, for good, for a change. And our young people are going to have homes to live in again, to start families. You know, it was only 13 years ago, my wife bought her home in Orleans. What was it? What did you pay for that again? $230,000. 2012. How many bedrooms? 2 bedrooms. This was before me. I can't take any credit for this. She got this on her own. And you were young. You were basically, well, back then you were basically a teenager. I mean, right? She was 25 years old. She could buy a beautiful home in Orleans. And that's not with help from family. That's with the hard work that she did herself. That was the norm in their 20s. Young people used to be able to buy a nice place to live. And that meant that they could start their lives and build families and in wonderful places like Barrhaven and Greeley and Riverside South. But now those homes are too expensive and many of our young people feel shut out. The biggest single expense that goes into a new home today is taxes and bureaucracy. A third goes to taxes, another roughly third goes to the delays, the permitting, the lawyers, the consultants. More money for a new home goes to bureaucracy, to bureaucrats, than goes to the carpenters, electricians, and plumbers that actually build the homes. This makes no sense, and we will lead the way to fix it. As part of our 100 days of action, Conservatives will axe the federal sales tax on new homes to save you up to 65 grand for a change. We'll incentivize our municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut their development charges as well to bring $100,000 of taxes off of the homes. We will sell off unused federal land and buildings for 300,000 future homes to be built. And we will incentivize cities to permit 15% more homes, all of which will allow us to build 2.3 million homes over the next 5 years. So you can get a start for a change. And we want to bring home powerful paychecks to those homes. We're going to unleash our economy, $500 billion of extra economic growth by repealing the anti-energy and development laws, C-69, the energy cap. We're going to rapidly approve pipelines, mines, LNG plants, data centers, and much more to bring home our paychecks to Canada and become more economically independent so we can stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to anyone who gets in our way for a change. And we want those paychecks to come home to safe neighborhoods. So we will stop the crime for a change. Right across. Is there any crime in Ottawa these days? Is it worse than it used to be? Yeah, a lot worse. Out of control. He says some of it happens on Parliament Hill, he says. What's that? Well, there's a lot of crime going on right across the country. Violent crime up 50%. Gun crime up 116%. Extortion up 350%. My friends, this is the result of liberal catch and release hug-a-thug laws that turn the same repeat offenders loose again and again on our streets. C-75 requires the judges release the accused at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions, meaning that the same 40 offenders in Vancouver had to be arrested 6,000 times. That means once every 2 days, each of these guys was arrested. They basically have to be doing crime all day, every day, to get arrested every 2 days. It's insane. And then there's house arrest, C5. You can be a career car thief, having stolen 100 cars, and you get your sentence in your living room, watching Netflix or playing Grand Theft Auto. And then you just walk right out of the streets and do it all over again. They tell the police they're not even afraid of getting caught. They don't even bother trying to avoid capture. They leave the evidence everywhere because it's more hassle to dodge getting caught than it is just to go in and out of the revolving door. Well, my friends, as part of the 100 days of change, we will repeal C-75 catch and release. We will repeal house arrest. We'll repeal the Paul Bernardo get out of jail free card and make sure he stays in a max pen. We will pass the 3 strikes you're out law, 3 convictions, no more bail, no more parole, no more house arrest, no more probation. It will be jail, not bail, jail, not bail. Offenders will, if they want to ever get out of jail, will no longer have a statutory release. Those with multiple convictions will have to earn their way out of prison with perfect behavior, clean drug tests, and learning an employable skill to ensure that when they get out, they'll be contributing members of our society, not going on carrying on crime. That ends for a change. We're going to stand up for the law-abiding people right across the country. That means that we're going to secure our borders with 2,000 more border guards, more watchtowers along the frontier, scanners of shipping containers to intercept the drugs, guns, and stolen cars that come in and go out of our country. And we will pay for all of this by canceling the ridiculous multi-billion-dollar gun grab that targets law-abiding, trained and tested hunters and sport shooters. The hunters, the farmers, and Grandpa Joe, they're not the problems. Grandpa Joe and his hunting rifle are not what's shooting up our communities. It's illegal firearms. Speaking of our farmers, do we have any farmers here? Is Earl Stanley here? Earl Stanley? Earl's around here somewhere. Earl's from an old farming family. Earl's back there. He's busy. He's on his tractor right now. Right. You know, I think I came here when my early days in politics. I actually won the plowing match here. So this is a good omen that I'm back here again. I won the plowing match. I was briefly a farmer. I was outstanding in my field. And but Earl, you're going to have to testify, in fact, that I won the plowing match. And that's a skill. You got to be able to plow in a straight line. Go from one end to the other and get to the end. That's what it means in politics. We need more of the common sense of the farmers, the small business owners, the single moms, the seniors. A little bit of that common sense for a change might make the government run a lot better. And we're going to make sure that we as a nation are safe and secure. That requires we rebuild the great Canadian Armed Forces, our military, our troops. We will be building 4 massive Canadian-made icebreakers to take back our icy waters and prevent the Russians and Chinese from incursions in our territory. Canada is going to protect its sovereignty. We're going to rely on no other nation for that. We are going to be a nation that protects itself. We'll have new landing runways in the north. We will fill all the vacancies in the Army, Navy, and Air Force. We will get those Poseidon aircraft up in the sky, surveilling the waters to look down and make sure there are no foreign submarines in our territories. And we will build, I should say, the first Arctic base in Canada since the Cold War, CFB Iqaluit. CFB Iqaluit will be a nerve center so that Canada can exercise its strength and propel and project power right throughout the Arctic territories and make sure that we are able to defend ourselves and protect our nation and the territory with which we have been so blessed as a nation. We will be honoring our history, and most of all, we will restore the faith of our veterans by giving them the treatment and the honor that they deserve. No more having to fight government departments for the benefits that you're owed. Thank you very much for your service to the country, sir. I see your beautiful medals there. Give it up for our veterans. We will expand helmets to hard hats so the young veterans can go on making money in the trades, earning powerful paychecks, working in civilian jobs. The older veterans will get automatic assistance for the disabilities that they incurred as a result, directly or indirectly, of their service. And never again will we allow the bureaucracy to express to a young veteran who's wounded and suffering that the best way out is medical assistance in dying. We want people to live with dignity. We want our veterans to understand that we appreciate them. In fact, they are the symbol of everything that is great about our country. We will have a government that is grateful, not only for the heroes of the present, but the heroes of the past. Those people who built this country. If we can see over the horizon, it's because we stand on the shoulders of giants. We will no longer be tearing down statues. We will be building new statues. We will fill our beautiful passport with all of the heroes of the past. Terry Fox, the famous 5, the Canadian military. We will restore our freedom by repealing censorship laws so that you can speak your mind and express yourself. We'll put Canadians back in charge of their lives. We will have a government that is servant rather than master. That's what Prime Minister means. The word minister actually has its root in the word servant. The Prime Minister is the first servant of the country, and his job. And I would be honored to serve each and every one of you. This is it, my friends. We're almost there. It's been quite a journey. You know, I launched my campaign for leadership of this party and to run for Prime Minister almost exactly 3 years ago to the day. And in that time, I've been to just over 180 of these rallies. Incredible. In just 3 years. It's been an incredible journey. We've had well over 100,000 people at those rallies, and up until the campaign, when things started moving really quick and I wasn't able to stop and spend the time, we had a hard rule that I would stand in line and greet one person after another, shake their hands, hear their stories, learn their concerns and their fears, but also hear about their hopes and their aspirations. And it's meant so much to me that you vested in me, your hope. It means a lot to know that people, I'm actually in awe, that so many people have put their hope that I can deliver for their future, for their lives. It means the world to me. Thank you. I'm deeply grateful. Thank you. Thank you. I want you to know that no matter what happens tomorrow, I will be there to fight for you, for your quality of life, for your future, for your hopes and aspirations, to bring home the Canadian promise that this country made and kept to my wife, Anna, and I. We both come from very humble beginnings. It is only in this country that we could be standing at this place. That's what makes Canada so special. It is a place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where hard work gets you a great life in a safe neighborhood, in a beautiful, affordable house under a proud flag. And so I leave with a message of hope to that small businessman who's grinding away, wondering whether he's going to make it through another month. Have hope. Change is on the way. To the single mother whose fridge is empty, whose bank account is empty, whose stomach is empty, and worried that she might not be able to feed her kids tomorrow. Have hope. Change is on the way for you too. To the seniors who still have their adult children living in the basement and want them to have a house so that there can be grandkids and a brighter future, have hope. Change is on the way for you too. For all of the people who no longer recognize the country but are anxious to bring home the nation that we knew and still love, have hope. Change is on the way. Ayons de l'espoir. Il va y avoir un vrai changement pour un bel avenir. La promesse du Canada que chacun qui travaille fort peut avoir une belle vie dans une belle maison abordable sur une rue sécuritaire. That is the promise of Canada. It is my life's work to restore and uphold that promise for you and for all Canadians. Tomorrow is the day. Vote for the Canadian promise. Vote for change. Let's bring it home.